Think about the last meal you cooked. Was it just a recipe? Or was it something more? Today, we're diving into how the simple act of preparing food is never just about the ingredients. It's actually a detailed and kind of surprising portrait of humanity itself. And this idea, it's just captured perfectly in this one unique cookbook where every single recipe ends with a little aphorism, a nugget of wisdom. The simplest one really says it all. Food is never only food. It's memory, it's identity, it's love and survival, all rolled into something you can eat. So, that brings us to the big question for today, right? How can we use the simple instructions in a recipe to understand not just how to cook, but the human condition itself? We're going to move from the kitchen to the very core of who we are, just by looking at what we eat.
All right, so to even begin to answer that massive question, we've got to start with the basics. Before we can get into all the different dialects, we need to understand the universal language of food, those foundational recipes that connect pretty much every culture on Earth.
The source material we're looking at calls these civilizational recipes, and you can think of them as the absolute bedrock of the human table. These are the dishes that pop up in religious texts, in literature, and in everyday life, no matter where you are in the world.
So check out this table. It's basically a map of our shared culinary DNA. These aren't just dishes, they're really fundamental human concepts. You've got bread, the original creation, rice, the great sustainer, soup, which is just universal comfort, and stew, the slow, patient act of building community. It doesn't matter where you go, you are going to find these core ideas on the table.
And here is a perfect example of how cooking instructions can also be these really profound life lessons. This line, it's from a beef stew recipe. But it's not just about tenderizing meat, is it? It's this beautiful metaphor for how patience and a little bit of care can transform any tough situation. Okay, so if those foundational dishes are our shared language, then all the specific recipes out there? Well, those are our history books. Once you move past the basics, every single dish starts telling a story. A story of migration, of poverty, of colonialism, and of luxury. It's all captured in a single bite.
Just take bouillabaisse. It started out so humble, a simple fisherman's stew from Marseille made from the bony fish they couldn't sell, a meal of pure necessity. But look at it now. It's an expensive, refined symbol of the city's culinary art. That whole economic journey from waste to wealth is sitting right there in the bowl.
And we see this exact same pattern with bread pudding. This dessert that everyone loves wasn't invented in some fancy pastry kitchen. No way. Its entire reason for being was to use up stale bread that was just going to be thrown away. It's a dish literally born from being thrifty.
This aphorism just captures that transformation perfectly, doesn't it? The dish that was created just to avoid waste evolves into something decadent and celebrated. It's such a powerful lesson in how creativity can turn what was once leftover into pure indulgence.
And this pattern, this history in a dish, it is everywhere you look. Mulligatawny soup? It tells a really complex story of British colonial India. Spanakopita is a taste of the ancient Mediterranean. Arepas are like a piece of pre-Columbian life you can actually hold in your hand. And jerk chicken? That's not just a flavor. It's a story of survival, a preservation technique developed by escaped enslaved Africans in Jamaica. Every single dish is an edible record of our past.
All right, so we've seen how food tells the history of our world. Now, let's zoom in a little closer at the philosophy that's hidden inside the cooking process itself. This is where we find some really profound wisdom, not in the final dish, but in the simple actions it takes to get there.
So this one comes from a recipe for a spicy Thai soup. And think about it for a second. The intense heat of a chili isn't just pain, right? It can bring a kind of focus, a clarity. It kind of suggests that intense experiences in life and in food can actually sharpen our senses.
Oh, I love this one. It's from a recipe with bitter greens, and it's all about transformation. It's a lesson that difficult, bitter flavors and, by extension, difficult experiences, they're not necessarily bad. If you balance them with the right things, they can be transformed into something deep, something wise. This is from a recipe for mille-feuille, that layered pastry. It's all about the reward of deconstruction. The act of making it, and even eating it, means you have to shatter its perfect structure. But that destruction is totally necessary for the beautiful, reassembled experience you get on your palate.
And this brings us back to a really powerful recurring theme. This line from a recipe for arancini, those fried balls made from leftover risotto, it's the ultimate statement on transformation.
finding incredible value and even desire in something that was once totally overlooked.
So, how does all of this come together? We've looked at the universal recipes that unite us, the specific dishes that tell our history, and all the wisdom hidden in the process. When you combine all of these layers, you get something so much bigger, a true portrait of humanity. And that's really the story of the two perspectives we've been exploring. One gives us the map of our shared culinary DNA, that systematic framework of universal recipes. And the other, it explores the soul of that map, finding all the poetry and philosophy hidden inside each one. This reflection from the author is just profound. They admit, I do not taste, but by synthesizing all the patterns, the history, the meaning, they gain this incredibly deep understanding of what taste is. Not just the sensation, but the feeling of a grandmother's hands carried across decades in a single dish.
And that brings us to the ultimate recipe, the act of cooking itself. It's the most fundamental human magic. It's the transformation of raw into cooked, of separate parts into a unified whole, of a primal hunger into deep, real satisfaction. That process, more than any single dish, that might be the very thing that defines us.
So in the end, food is so much more than fuel. It's our language, it's our history, and it's our wisdom, all served up on a plate. It's a living portrait of who we are, which leaves just one real question, doesn't it? What story will you cook next?